Welcome back to the show, everyone. Craig and Jonah here. It's we got here at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning. Did you have your ice bath today?
Totally. Got
Man,
up at 5,
that,
jumped in the ice bath, and here I am.
that explains why you're in such a good mood.
It's the best thing that I've ever done, just as far as adding something to my routine.
I'll take your word for it.
Well,
What do you got for us today?
I put together another episode of Uncharted Catholic Man news. And so initially, I had said that the only folks that were immune from these jokes were exorcist and Mark Wahlberg. But I'm happy to say there's been a new addition.
Okay.
Shia LaBeouf
Oh,
recently became Catholic.
yes.
And since he's welcomed into the faith, and I don't know.
Hi, I'm sure you're watching, listening.
If you want to come on the show,
Yeah.
open invite.
Yep. We don't pay a big speaker fee, but we'll let you promote yourself because to our huge audience.
Welcome to the club, buddy. You know, I wasn't really a Shia LaBeouf fan until he came out with the movie Peanut Butter Falcon. Have you seen it?
No.
Absolutely fantastic movie. It's on Amazon.
Oh.
One of the best movies I've seen in years.
I don't have time to watch this stuff. I'm too busy, reading like masturbation videos and
Well,
not how-tos.
If you ever want to
How not to.
if you ever want to take a break,
Yeah.
I would say Peanut Butter Falcon is a great movie.
All right.
So, and this is just a public service announcement. It's a little late, but a recent study published in the British Journal of Urology International found that the holidays are associated with a higher risk of penile fracture injuries. This injury tends to occur during wild sex, particularly in positions where you're not in direct eye contact with your partner, such as the reverse cowgirl. Just keep that in mind. Said Dr. Nicholas Pyragaitis, a urologist at the Ludwig Maximilian University of Munich, who led the research. The fractures are often heralded by an audible crack, followed by severe pain, loss of erection, and severe swelling and bruising. When patients present to their doctor, their penis often looks like an eggplant. Makes sense.
Well, I guess the emoji's right then.
They are.
Yeah.
In fact, if every day was like Christmas, 43% more penile fractures would have occurred in Germany from 2005 on. And what's interesting is that the average age for this injury was 42. We're both right around that.
Yeah.
And most penile fractures occur in unconventional scenarios, such as during extramarital affairs, so stay away from that. Feel
Don't
pretty
worry
safe there.
Yeah.
Or when sex is performed in unusual locations,
Up on the housetop, ding dong.
Well, and he says that these scenarios are more likely when men are approaching midlife. Which
some guys go out and do wild sex, and other guys start a podcast.
That's true, and here we are.
Safer. I mean, maybe you'll be a heretic like us, but you're not breaking your wiener.
Be careful.
Yeah.
Keep it deep. That's the safest way to do it.
Yep.
Recently, a phase 1 trial began in the UK evaluating the effectiveness of a male birth control pill. Don't worry, ladies. Sleep easy knowing that the same guy who can't pick up his socks off the floor is definitely going to remember to take that magic pill every day that stops part of his testicles from working.
Go up to the vet clinic and they get that tube that you shoot a pill down the child's mouth.
Just ram it down there.
Stick it in your mouth when you're sleeping. I bet she'll make sure that pill makes it to your gullet.
You know, I mean, obviously we don't promote birth control, but just relying on the guy to take the pill seems like just a poor solution.
I think that just goes without saying. So yeah.
This is a pretty interesting story. An Arizona man sued a body donation company after he donated his mother's body for Alzheimer's research and later found out that it was actually used to test the impact of roadside bombs. Upon further investigation, it seems likely that the man's wife didn't want to take any chances with their mother-in-law having some sort of Lazarus event and arranged for the transfer.
Woo!
No comments from anybody.
We've given thought to doing a mother-in-law episode, but so far it's one of the few things we've had the good sense to stay away from. For now.
That's one of the few topics that we will not tackle anytime soon. A recent book evaluated the reasons for the so-called mating gap and why women are having difficulty finding a co-parent. First off, I'd say calling him a co-parent is part of it. Anyways,
Titles matter.
They do. When you say I'm looking for a father to my children versus I'm looking for a co-parent, those are two different things. Anyways, they looked at the reasons why an increasing number of women are freezing their eggs. The study says these are well-educated and successful women who found themselves in the difficult situation of wanting partnership, pregnancy, and parenthood, but are unable to find a suitable reproductive partner. The potential partners are lacking what is called the 3 E's: eligible, educated, and equal. To which some men might say, oh, so you're going to blame that on me too? Okay, well, maybe that's why you had to freeze your eggs in the first place. And on second thought, you can keep them
there. That's right.
There's some truth in that.
That's right.
That was, it's such an arrogant post. And that's something, and it was important to me, I guess, that I married somebody that had equal education. We're looking back on it. Totally unnecessary. Like, that's overrated.
Yeah.
And I get you want to be able to have conversations, that sort of thing, on an equal playing field and education, like foundation. But really, there's some other more important things.
It just guarantees mutual destruction or whatever they call it.
Mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
Recently, a teenage boy named Willis Gibson of Oklahoma became the first person to ever beat Tetris. At level 157, Gibson reached the notorious kill screen, the point in which the game becomes unplayable because of the limitations with the game's original programming. It took him less than 39 minutes to complete this feat. Ironically, attempting to beat Tetris while spending hours locked in his room alone was exactly what Craig told his parents he was doing when he was a teenager.
Oh,
and I'm just kidding. He was actually reading Alphonsus Liguori.
Yeah.
That's true.
That is true. And look at me now. So be warned.
All right, one more story.
All right.
A recent study revealed that women are the primary drivers in changing our language. A team of experts from the University of Helsinki analyzed handwritten letters over the course of hundreds of years, and they found that females changed words first, and it often took men many decades to catch up to the language change. To which many men would say, I'd believe it. I have no idea what my wife is saying most of the time.
That's right.
It's true.
Man, oh man.
It's funny.
It is funny. It's true. Well, all right.
Well, that's all I got. I thought that was kind of funny.
That was the lengths that Jonah will go to.
Yeah, just looking at goofy news stories. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the penile fracture one was interesting. I mean,
I don't know. I guess I have to use my imagination to see how that can happen.
Ironically, I'm not kidding. It almost happened.
Okay, well, you can't just say that and not give him the rest of
it. Give me details, but I was like, oh shit. And it was around Christmas time as well.
Well, I mean, I guess I can say that being startled by a toddler running through your door is certainly a hazard for most good Catholics like us.
Oh, that's funny.
I wonder if it's equally spread amongst different religions or not.
Yeah, if it happens on Christmas, even if you're not Christian.
Can you break that thing solo, or is that truly a team activity?
That's got to be a team activity.
So there are hazards to being Catholic, good Catholic. Yeah. Make sure that thing's under warranty.
Oof. I don't know. They just said if it happens, you want to get it checked out right away, which that makes sense.
Hopefully, you know how like those spies that can like spin your neck really quick. Hopefully there's not some class out there.
And there's a doctor that's been training his whole life at that very moment.
Yeah, that's right.
Put it back in place.
Right.
Like a fractured arm. You can just reset it.
That's right. Honey, it reminds me of the last time that we were in the ER with our youngest. She had what's called nursemaid's elbow or something. She was going for the oven. The oven was on, and my wife grabbed her, I think by both arms, and the elbow becomes dislocated, which is not unusual. So we went online, Google how to do it, and I tried to like twist her arm, and that was too much for me. And I have a pretty high tolerance for doing stuff.
Yeah, I can see.
Took up the ER, and they put her right back in. She's like, "Well, if it happens again, here's how you do it." So maybe Maybe we can have someone on that can show you how to put that thing back in place, and you can finish the job because you don't want to. You don't want to stop. You don't want to stop before the marital act is complete because you know what'll happen to you.
That's true. They don't discuss injury. Sometimes you get a cramp.
We're not taking chances here, folks. We're Catholics.
I bet you there's a YouTube video on how to reset that.
I'll let you take that chance with your computer and your YouTube feed.
Yeah.
Oh my. Okay.
Well,
anything else for us, Jonah?
Nope, that's all I got for that.
So, if you haven't, hey, I have a pro tip. This is a legit pro tip for people. If you haven't found him, go find Father Joseph Krupp, Krupp. We'll link to his YouTube show below. Really, really funny. Even funnier than us, and that's hard to do.
He is funny.
He's a Catholic priest, I think, out of Detroit. And just a really wonderful balance of I guess holy direction and humor. But he's got a YouTube channel. He's funny as hell on Twitter. So I'll link to his Twitter page below. But you go searching in for searching Catholic channels other than ours, you can really become you can really have some shiners on your eyes and become very paranoid and scrupulous. And if you find yourself feeling that way, go check out Father Krupp. I think you'll find some comfort in his stuff. Maybe we'll get him on the show sometime. I think we would.
Yeah, we'd have a good time.
Yeah. So, but Twitter's been kind of fun lately. Got our first blocks, or I got our first block that I know of. The one poor guy had his we haven't figured out if he was married or not, but he was vehemently arguing. I'm not sure what he was arguing about so much other than he's got his bios in Latin, and he took about 12 tweets to try and explain why quote unquote illicit acts between a husband and wife are wrong, and he went on this whole rambling thing about not treating people like objects, and he started talking about homosexual relationships and all kinds, and he really got off in the weeds. And
but I also thought he said that the sacrament of matrimony protects us in a certain way. Well, so I wasn't sure what he meant by that.
I wasn't either. And it was an interesting conversation until I asked him what he thought about the marital debt, and I blocked. So
it's that hot button of an issue, huh?
I guess so.
I don't know why that would have been the last straw.
Yeah, I don't know either. So Twitter brings out all kinds of creatures, ourselves included. Got the next block came within a couple of hours. I got tagged in some bigger channel, Catholic comedian or something like that, and I asked him about Onan, and got the old block for not vehemently supporting the Catholic Church's teaching that God smote Onan for pulling out. There's certain dogmas you don't challenge, I guess.
Even though, like you said, Taylor Marshall does not even believe that
I don't know how much that.
Case.
Yeah, I don't know how much that helps us, but Taylor, if you're listening, I wanted you to know.
I'm sure he is.
I'm sure he is. Nothing better to do than to listen to these guys. But I mean, again, and it's all in fun, but it's just weird how we can, be like, it's the question isn't whether it's right or wrong. The question is, was it so bad that guy would kill him for it? Like people are wandering around all the time. Some of you even are wandering around with mortal sins on your soul, and you need to go to confession. God's not killing you. God's not striking you down.
Like, even if you pulled out every day this week,
Yes.
I don't think that that's happening to many people.
Ooh.
Where they're, so I had some thoughts. So after listening to that Father Joe's podcast on, it was on purity or human sexuality. I can't remember what the title was, but he was talking about how these rules that we have for sexuality make sense in the context of like the ancient times, as far as when people got married when they were 13. And because it makes sense that you wouldn't want a 13-year-old guy going solo instead of having sex with his wife, because that just sets you up for failure. And likewise, so like, let's just say in the context of Onan, if he was actually a teenager and he was that spiteful, that he did not want to reproduce, maybe that's what like it's a whole, like when I heard the story of Onan, I assumed he was an older man, but perhaps he was just a teenager and he's that rebellious, and I don't know. Like I don't know. It is different if he's supposed to be like, I mean, as a teenager, you're supposed to, you're dreaming about girls, versus like.
Well, I remain convinced that to the extent that the story is true, and I don't think as Catholics we have to believe that every story in Scripture is like historically accurate.
It can be allegory,
right? Assuming it's true, it sure seems to have. I mean, it happened multiple times. It sure seems like it was because this widow wanted children and he didn't want to give it to her, but he's willing to marry her. That seems like a very different situation than a husband and wife. It's in a committed marriage, and
they have 9 kids.
Hypothetically, there's 9 children, doesn't want to get pregnant again, and they both decide to do that. Like it could be wrong, but the couple deciding to do that is a very different story than the teenage Onan who's basically swindling this widow. So
yeah, so maybe he was looking to inherit. I don't know if she had any wealth or that she would have accumulated from her husband. I don't know how that worked, but
all right. So now, my version of the story in my mind has changed. It's a teenage boy and this old wrinkly widow.
Cougar.
Yeah, that's right. Get that out of
A
here.
weathered cougar from the desert.
Starting to make more sense now.
I just can't do it. I can't do it. I'll give it a good try.
We'll eventually get to the bottom of it.
I'll tell you what, we've explored this from a lot of different angles, more so than anybody else, I think.
That is true. I don't think anyone is going to take such an interest in the story of Onan as us.
In 2 lines of scripture.
That's right. Although it's funny you say that about sort of the way ancients talk. I'm actually going to pause this. I'm going to go grab a book. All right. I just took a short break, but so Jonah was talking about how Father Krupp or whatever said that some of the sexual teachings make more sense if you're thinking back ancient times. And so so we've been getting ready for episode 200, and I got a lot of reading to do, but I've been reading this book called Contraception: A History of Its Treatment by the Catholic Theologians and Canonists. I'm sure this is probably considered heretical by good the good Catholic community.
Oh, no kidding.
It came out in the,
because you can't even talk about it. Is that where the heresy starts?
I probably shouldn't be reading it. It came out in 1965, which was just before Humani Vitae. Humani Vitae, I think, was 1968, 69. But I think it was because that was around the time when Humani Vitae, the commission was doing things. But the funny thing is, it's written by John Noonan Jr., who strangely, he's not a theologian. He was a circuit court judge for the Court of Appeals for like the, I don't know, 8th or 9th Circuit, some federal court out west.
We had a deep interest in contraception.
Yeah, I wish we could have met this guy because
Is he still alive?
no, he's dead. Sorry, I already looked that up.
Did he have any children, or did he cut them off?
Yeah, it's a very fascinating thing, but it goes all the way back to the Jewish roots. Talks about Onan, um, some of the different philosophies, the Greeks, the Romans, the Gnostics, the different quote unquote heresies or schools of thought, the Stoics, and you can just see how those worldviews influenced church teaching. I'll use that term loosely. Let's say like not even like dogma, but like how certain saints talked about it. I mean, you could just
which shaped how we
and
are
you
taught
still
today.
see it. You still see it today. And I'm not and he what I haven't I haven't got the whole book. I mean, I'm still in like the first or second century. But it's intended to kind of do a historical tracing of the development of this over time. But you can see the roots of these ancient ideas that I think if we were all starting afresh and say, you know what, let's throw out all the stuff on the table and let's find out what are we as 21st, we 21st century, or we 20, yeah,
Yeah,
is it the
21st
21st?
century, yeah. It is the 21st century.
Us 21st century Catholics. So for those of you that are watching this 2 centuries from now on YouTube,
And as kids, we grew up in the 20th century.
that's right. That's how old we are.
That is.
Um, but how would we look at, like, how would we form a system for evaluating sexual morality, sexual ethics from a Catholic perspective if we just started all over and weren't doing it in a time when there was belief that Jesus was coming back immediately, no need to have children, the Stoics and all those people that thought that the flesh, the world was all evil, spirit's the only thing that matters. Like, I wonder, I would think that it would look a little different now.
That's true, especially when you consider that it's the early teachings that carry the most weight. If it was more even, at least,
Yeah,
it might be different. I don't know.
yeah. So, um, anyway, it's interesting, kind of going back to a couple of Twitter conversations that I had yesterday. Um, the stuff that these people are arguing with, like they don't they don't promote it or defend it as if it's like sensible or logical, but this is the way this is what we've always been taught, and this is what we've been told. Which I get it. We're a church that has tradition as a very foundational part of being a Catholic, which I think provides a good foundation to support, but sometimes it seems like it could be an anchor that
Hmm.
um makes it difficult to incorporate new information.
So that's where where people would say you're a heretic. I mean, like that, and that. But then, are you allowed to think or discuss? Because we aren't advocating for anything. We're just talking.
I think we're just talking about the things that most people do or should be thinking about in private, and just other than Twitter have the good sense to um, not talk about it. But I don't know. I mean, it's a strange overlap because it's what do we say? It's an area that has these very, very ancient, I would say at times antiquated roots. And yet, even in the 21st century, nothing more directly and regularly impacts the lives and consciences of Catholics, especially married Catholics, than this.
Hmm.
Like it's constantly running into each other.
And they would say that if you have to live like brother and sister, live like brother and sister. And I'm going to guess that they're either single or they've never lived as brother and sister, and they possibly use the marital
Marital debt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If That's just it. I don't know. I- We're just in a we're just Joan and I were commenting before that we're sort of in this unique position that, we're not we really don't fall into the two common camps, one being, well, let's say more progressive liberal Catholics that are all for birth control and all of that. We don't do that. Not
Yep.
advocating that. But then on the other hand, you have sort of the old rah rah, yeah, of course God killed Onan for that, and
Everybody's going to hell except for the few select.
yeah. It's just a weird place to be because and of course there's the crowd that there's still the crowd that thinks NFP is too liberal, like that's a sin to use NFP, which just boggles my mind.
Yeah.
So, we're just in this situation where, we've lived out, not perfectly, but to the best of our abilities, Catholic teaching on this with respect to birth control and openness to life. And, I have a large family as a result of that, for better or for worse. And
And like in the modern day, marriage is crumbling. And if you look at the reasons for it, a lot of it, at least at a basic level, is lack of intimacy, on both physical and, you know, spiritual, mental, however you want to look at it. But I was looking up the stats on how many people are actually like happy in marriage this week. And they're all over the board. You can't get a good answer really. Like the one study said, 78% of married couples are happy, but in reality, 50% get divorced. So that doesn't add up. I think it's more like, 50% get divorced. You have probably a large, like maybe even 25% that are close to getting divorced. And those can fluctuate as far as like, you go through stressful times, non-stressful times. So you got 25% that are on the verge. Then you got probably another 20% where one person is happy and the other person is probably just waiting to die. I'm not, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe it's not. And then you have like a very small percentage where people are happy all the time. I
yeah.
don't know. But a lot of it can all be influenced by just communication and intimacy. And those are the ways to heal marriage. But if you can't, you know, participate in intimacy more than, on an optimal level, your marriage is going to suffer.
So do you think that let's say those marriages that live under the umbrella of the marital debt, and let's say intimacy is just more frequent than a lot of marriages because of that, do you think those marriages are indirectly happier because you have the intimacy?
I don't know. I suspect that it's probably just
Maybe that's the one is
we're-
happy and the
one
other
is
isn't.
happy, but one is probably happy and the other one isn't. And I don't know. I mean, and if you've ever lived as brother and sister in your marriage, you know how difficult it could be. Like for us, we had to go through, well, we didn't have to at times, but we went through periods of longer abstinence. And like sex was just like magic in our house.
Mhm.
Like I'd get in bed and she'd disappear. You know? But then through communication and more frequent intimacy, it all changed, and it became like a source of strength as
Yeah,
opposed to just like you're
yeah.
just married and going through things.
Well, and it's strange because you know I kind of keep track of the social media of some of the polite Catholic media, some of which we've had some run-ins in
Yeah.
the past. And it's strange because just in the last week or so, this person who has coaching programs designed for Catholic women, but was posting about how valuable sex is to your marriage and how much grace and fruitfulness brings to your marriage, and to her credit, encouraging women, even when you don't really feel like it, find ways to desire it,
Hmm.
intimacy, which great, I totally agree. But it's just weird because we've gotten in conflict with her in the past for, I guess suggesting intimacy on not quite the perfect terms. Example that we had, I said, well, what if a husband requests sex because it's been a while and he's really afraid of falling into sin? She didn't didn't like that. Maybe she's
But I
coming
get
around.
that,
I don't
it's
know.
tough. Like you have to be, it's like John Paul II said of putting your needs ahead of your partner, or you putting your partner's needs ahead of your own.
Mhm.
And I don't know. It's a difficult situation. It's a balancing act,
Yeah,
because like uh, for my wife and I, once we talked about it, she's like, "Oh, well, we could just do that,"
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
but just because it wasn't really on her radar as far as being something important.
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing that I see that I struggle with is I see sort of the modern, not the traditionalist, not the marital debt folks, but kind of the modern TOB Catholics, theology of the body Catholics is I think they do a really good job of promoting intimacy and in promoting, especially for, let's say, the typical situation where the husband wants it more than the wife, and especially you got children, may not be on her radar at all. Encouraging women especially to find ways to have more intimacy in your marriage, which I think is great. But then there's behind that, there in this is they focus so much on this mindset, and the man has to have the not only it's not enough that you're not using birth control, that you're abstaining when you got to abstain and all that, but you got to have this very pure mindset that your motives have to be just 100% pure, I guess. And I'm not sure what that even looks like. Uh,
Yeah,
or
like how they can discern absolute purity in those situations. I don't know.
I don't know either. Other than I would just say if that's the goal, which I'm fine with, abstinence works against that. The only thing in my mind that fosters a sort of a, a view of your wife that is more about her as a person and less about your carnal needs is when intimacy is more frequent. The more you've been abstaining, the more I think your motives are clouded by the carnal needs. So
Yeah, uh, and to that they would say you're a heretic,
I guess so.
and you're, just so blinded by your past desires or whatever that you can't see clearly. That's what
Yeah,
they would say.
yeah, and the really the turning point in our marriage was when my wife realized how different we look at things, and wasn't just judgmental for me when I express, how we really look, how this works. She wasn't there judging me. She's like, okay, what do we need to do to make this work? And it's been totally different. Like our marriage has never been better. I've never been happier. I think my wife's never been happier. And we've just found, I would say, a nice balance between, intimacy and mindset and all that, that I just think that there's this very easy trap when you get too carried away, too zealous about theology of the body and stuff like that, that you can just drive yourself crazy
Mhm.
with a new form of scrupulosity.
Yeah, when you're evaluating how you desire your wife,
Yeah.
that's scrupulosity.
I just don't think it's all that helpful, and I just don't think that's really warranted by what we believe as Catholics, but maybe we're wrong, but I don't know.
It's deep in the weeds if it's there.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so yeah, we love marriage. We love we are very blessed to have good marriages, not perfect marriages, but really good marriages, and we want to share that with other
And
people.
only through communication. Like it's not like marriage was just, pure bliss for, you know, a large stretches at times.
Yeah. Well, and I think I would say this to wrap that up is, it seems to me when I hear people, especially Catholic women, talk very forcefully about that whole mindset, you must have the right intentions. I really question how free their husbands are. to open up and talk to them.
Well, yeah, you're not gonna talk to her about that.
I mean, if you're commenting on Instagram and you're liking posts that denigrate a guy that thought too much about sex after 2 weeks, don't be surprised that your husband doesn't
Doesn't
chime
talk
in.
to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't just assume that he's in agreement with you or he doesn't have those feelings. But do you really foster an environment where your spouse, especially your husband, can be honest with you?
It's a fair question. To which I think most of the women would say, of course.
Yes.
He can say whatever he wants.
You might be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, I would suspect that they probably would be surprised.
So that really is, I would say, the purpose that we aim to serve here is to remind people and to remember that the stuff that may be clear to you or easy for you may not be so easy for your spouse, and maybe keeping them from being open and transparent with you because they're afraid that you may not be able to receive them in love and compassion, because no guy wants to put his head on the chopping block and open
Yeah.
up if it's going to get.
And that lack of communication affects you in other areas of your marriage, without a doubt.
Yep. So I think it's easy to talk about the importance of communication and believe you have good communication, but it may not be as good as you think it is. So
Or that it can be.
yeah. So ask your husbands. Sit down and watch one of our episodes together. See if he laughs or not.
Yeah. Yep.
Give him immunity.
Yep. You're in the trust tree.
The trust.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, thanks for listening, everyone. Go to confession.
Yep. Trust in God's mercy.
Pray for your spouse, like and subscribe.
In that order.
In that order. And until next time, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good one.